Thank you, Mrs. Chair Lady, for the invitation to come here and the opportunity to speak about animal welfare in laying hens and especially the skeletal or the bone integrity. I will not talk a lot or too much about other traits, so really this is focused on the bone. But the first slide that I want to show is giving the message. In the layer industry, we are very used to dealing with challenges, especially in welfare. So you see the beak treatment, the killing of the day-old male chicks. These are topics that came up in the last years. The cage-free housing system is a challenge for the layer industry still. I remember very well, I started in the company in 1999, and it was in the early 2000s. We had a visitor group of US egg producers when we introduced our bird LSL in US market. And at that time, the European egg market was, in Germany or in Western Europe, was fully in this change from cage to cage-free. And we presented some of the aspects to these US egg producers that were visiting us. And I remember very well, they told me, this will never come to the US. Yeah? Never. Never is only 20 years ago. Yeah? So be careful when you say never. Yeah? Some of the challenges that we are dealing with is coming from this change. The industry or the consumers, or better saying the retailers, because they are the driving force in this change. The retailers made the decision to sell cage-free eggs only. I say because they say to the public they want to be animal welfare friendly. The reality is they identified they can make a better margin with cage-free eggs compared to cage eggs. Yeah? And therefore they were driving this change. The beak treatment is banned in Germany since 2017. My wording is not correct. It was banned more than 10 years before, but for the cage-free, there was still an exception, and the exception became the normal situation for the cage-free. But in 2017, it was decided to stop this exception for the cage-free, and since that time, beak treatment was completely banned in Germany, in Scandinavia, in Austria. Other European countries, UK, France, Italy, they are discussing about it, but they have not yet decided to execute it. I think it's only a matter of time that some of these countries will also change to non-beak treatment. After 6 or 7 years experience in Germany with no beak treatment, I have to say in the end it's going better than expected. There are still some issues, some problem flocks that need to be depopulated earlier because of problems. But the percentage of this problem flocks is really much lower than expected when they started. Day-old male killing, also a topic that I realized in the US egg industry is coming or starting to some extent, this discussion. We will see where this is going. But the next slides or the rest of my presentation, I want to focus on the third photo here. You see the keel bone. The keel bone is, you see the photo here, the deviation, the bending of the keel bone tip, fractures, and deformations. The keel bone, from today's point of view, in cage 3, when the bird is sitting all the night and sleeping on the keel bone, and the keel bone has to carry the body weight during the night. You could ask, was this a real useful design of this keel bone to carry all the weight of the bird? For some reason, nature has decided to make the keel bone like it is, and we have to deal with it. Bone injuries is one of the main animal welfare discussion in laying hens. 10 years ago, in the animal welfare discussion, it was more focused on the long bones, the breakage of the long bones, especially in the cage times, when during the depopulation of the hens, rough handling, then breaking of the long bones was the main issue. With changing to cage 3, cage 3 in general was a good thing for the bone stability because the exercise of the hens made a much better bone quality, bone stability for the long bones. So the breakage of bones during the depopulation and the transport of the hens to the slaughterhouse was much less, but the percentage of old fractures during the life of the hen increased a lot in cage 3 compared to cage. So in the end, the number of hens with indications of a bone breakage in the slaughterhouse was in the end similar like before. But the reason for the breakage became very different. So 50 to 100% of laying hens suffer during their life a bone fracture. If we go out to public, to animal welfare, NGOs, this is a disaster message. I cannot say it different than that. And this is something, maybe I will not say we are used to it, but for the outside world, this is a real uncomfortable message. 50 or 46% commercial layers have a keel bone damage. I will show later on another study with a higher percentage of keel bone damage. Genetic aspects is always under discussion in this situation. Is the breeding for a high egg mass output, for a high shell output, overloading the calcium turnover capacity of the hen, the calcium metabolism overloaded by breeding, question mark. It's not something new. Bone deformations are very long reported in the history. Charles Darwin is not only working with finches, he made also some studies in layer hens or in hens, chicken, and he found even in males, over 80% of males had deformed keel bones, sternums. In the 50s, in the real cage time, this cage layer fatigue was introduced. Not enough calcium to maintain the bone quality in the laying hens. And in the 90s, with this introduction of the cage-free housing, pushing the relevance of the topic even more. I want to start showing some data about older scientific work. This is from the year 2000 from the Roslin Institute. We have a long collaboration from Lohmann with people in the Roslin Institute. At that time, Colin Whitehead as head of the department, and then taking over from Ian Dunn, showing a reasonably good heritability of the keel bone radiographic density. And radiographic density at that time was the radiographic density of the dissected bone. not radiographic density of a live bird. This was much later developed, and I will come to it in one of the next slides. So you see the humerus, the tibia, and they creating in Roslin a bone index to make a selection for experimental lines. We were housing these experimental lines in our facilities. They not exist anymore, but this was demonstrated that by selecting on, at that time, not live measurement, the birds were all dissected, and based on this retrospective selection, these two lines with the diverged selection were created. The interesting story out of this, one very interesting is, you see in the second line, the keel bone. Keel bone radiographic density shows a reasonable high correlation, minus 0.7, minus 0.6, to the other bones. To the fracture. And also in the previous slide before, a reasonably good correlation between keel radiographic density and humerus and tibial strengths, breaking strengths. So the message out of this is there is a reasonably good correlation between different bones. So if we want to improve keel bone density, it's still a good strategy to measure other bones because keel bone is difficult to measure. A breaking strength, a density of the keel bone. The keel bone is a so big bone, different structure than a long bone. So we were discussing internally, already at that time, is it better to measure other bones and indirectly improve by this way the density, the breaking strength of the keel bone. How is developing during the life of the hen? Because now we come to the point, okay, we not want to wait until the hen is depopulated, nowadays over 100 weeks, to get the phenotype when dissecting the bones. So we want to see how is the bone fracture situation developing during the life of the hen. And here in this slide, I found this very nice. This is from the year 2000, from the Switzerland group. They made a literature analysis and showing the difference between white hens and brown hens and how it's developing during the life. And you see at the first is, not very clear to see, before start of lay. So in the pullets, there is no keel bone fracture. And when the age is progressing, so the last is here at 60 weeks. These are brown hens, these are white hens. So you see how it's increasing the prevalence during the life. Interesting also, and therefore I like this study because this is a literature review. White hens and brown hens are not so different. When you look at individual studies, you find some studies they say it's more in white, some say more in brown. In the end, it's in both. The lower body weight of the white hen may be a higher risk factor. And you see, when you look at this slide, it seems in the brown, it's developing earlier. So the higher body weight of the brown is not automatically something that helps for a better bone situation. And here is again this keel bone fracture, keel bone tip fracture. When we talk about keel bone, we have to be very careful and explain what do we talk about. The keel bone has three aspects of bone issue. It's the deviation, the bending of the bone. And it's the fractures in the front part that come from collisions, from accidents, and the fractures in the keel bone tip. I want to focus mainly on the keel bone tip in my next slides, but nevertheless, we have to be very careful and very aware what we really talk about to avoid misunderstanding in this topic. Keel bone fracture, keel bone tip fracture is something that is not really coming from performance. High performance seem to be correlated. When we look at genetic parameters, it's not the situation that the highest performing hens have more. And I found this study on a small number of birds, jungle fowl. And even in jungle fowl, you find keel bone tip fractures. So they have a very low performance, 10, 15 eggs in a year, and still some of these individuals, not many, some show this keel bone tip fracture. So how to measure, how to improve bone quality? The first idea 10 years ago from the Roslin team was make ultrasound. Ultrasound, easy to apply, cheap device. So we tried to make an ultrasound measurement in the humerus bone, so in the wing, because this was easier to apply for the sonographic measurement. 2 measurements, 30 weeks, 65 weeks, and then correlating with post-mortem investigations of tibia humerus breaking strength and density. The nice thing was it has a very good repeatability, over 0.9 or around 0.9. The genetic correlation to the medullary bone score that was done after dissecting was okay. The correlation to the bone density was 0.6, so this was promising, but to the breaking strength of the bone, there was no correlation. So improving medullary bone is nice, but if it's not helping to increase the breaking strength of the bone and reduce the number of fractures, then in the end we decided, okay, is not the best way to go forward, and we stopped this measurement or not put it in practice. So the point when the discussion started, or it started already before, but the point that we're bringing the keel bone tip fracture to the attention was this study in 21 from a Danish group, Danish veterinary group in Copenhagen. They went to depopulation of slaughter hens. And you need to know in Denmark, slaughter hens not go to a slaughter plant. They are processed on farm from a machine which is called chick pulp. So the hens are euthanized or killed by gassing CO2, and then on farm macerated to this pulp that is used as mink feed. So this veterinarian went to depopulation, took the hens before the maceration when they were killed by gassing, and then what did they observe or measure? Fractures in the keel bone tip. So in these photos, you see the left photo, this is like a keel bone from the inside, should look like. So there are no fracture lines. But on the right photo, you see an old fracture and a fresh fracture. Fresh fracture most probably appeared when opening the hen. The keel bone tip is a bone that is during the life of the hen continuous calcified. So when the hen is starting to lay, the keel bone tip is still not calcified. So it's flexible, it's cartilage. Yeah? And when the hen is getting older, calcification is moving forward, and then the cartilage is getting smaller and smaller. During this process of calcification, when the cartilage part is still flexible, it seems that, this point where the calcified part goes into the cartilage part, this is a sensitive point, and in the process of egg laying, this is, I like the word green stick fracture. Yeah? This is not a classical fracture where the bone, like a dry branch, is breaking. This is like a green branch. When you bend it, it's not breaking, but it gives a irritation to the tissue, which is called a green stick fracture. And I like this wording because it's very good explaining what's happening here. When people that are not aware of this hear about fracture, they always think about a real fracture, which is not the case here. This is also healing, but giving this fracture lines, and the worst cases look like this. Several of these fracture lines. I talked to experienced veterinarians that open a lot of hens in their daily job. This is something when you not really look for it, you will not see it. If you look for it, okay, then you will see it. Real experienced veterinarians, when they saw this Danish study, some of them really, I don't believe this. And then they went out, opened some birds, and came back, it's true. So this is something not very obvious. But when you look for it, okay, you find it. Some results from the Danish study, different housing system, enriched cages, sorry, it's too small, enriched cages, aviaries, organic, and parent stock. You see the prevalence not really different. Some cases, some studies show a lower prevalence in cages, but most of the studies say there's not a real difference of the housing system. So it's not a thing from activity or collisions or accidents. This is something, it seems that it really has to do with the egg-laying process, because pullets usually not show it, and after start of lay, it's seen more. What I really criticize in the Danish study is they analyzed risk factors. And risk factors, here is the age at onset of lay. Here you see the prevalence, so the estimate for the prevalence. And prevalence means how many fracture lines they observed. And you see the number of fracture lines is reducing with a later onset of lay, which is clear or obvious that the better the keel bone is calcified when the hen is starting to lay, less issues with these green stick fractures. But then they made another risk factor analysis showing egg size. Estimated daily egg weight per hen at onset of lay. So, and 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 gram. Is this an egg weight? For sure not. This is daily egg weight. So egg mass per day. And egg mass per day at start of lay is not related or a little related to egg size. This is related to sexual maturity. But the message that was taken or given out of this study was excise is the bad thing for keel bone fracture. Yeah? So when you look at radiographs, how far away the egg is from the keel bone tip, say, okay, does the excise, if it's few gram more, really matter in the pressure that is given to the keel bone tip or force that is given to the keel bone tip? I doubt it. Yeah? But the real bad message that was given from this study to they managed, I don't know how they managed, this was not only in the scientific literature, this also went in the real public literature. This problem was really discussed with outside or not only in the scientific community. So one thing that we started at that point when this problem was heavily discussed, this keel bone tip fracture, we started palpation. Palpation is quick to implement. This was the nice thing. For sure, there are downsides. It's subjective. The repeatability is not too high. It's only focusing on the keel bone, not on the other bones. And it's underestimating the fracture prevalence. The keel bone tip, you cannot palpate. Yeah? You can palpate the front part of the keel bone, the deviations, the bending, old fractures in the front part. This can be palpated, yes, but the keel bone tip, not too much. So here is a heritability for 6 different wide lines for the palpation score, except one of the lines, this line where the heritability was really very low. The other lines was not exciting, but it was a reasonable good heritability for a measurement that can be implemented soon and quick and with not too much technical effort. In the second column, you see the genetic correlation to sexual maturity. Yeah? And this is in all lines clearly negative. This means earlier sexual maturity. So here the trait is the rate of lay in the first 8 weeks of the hen. So from 20 to 27 weeks, the rate of lay. To this palpation score that is done later in life, 60 to 80 weeks. So a clearly negative genetic correlation. And here in this slide, you see how it's looking. You see the palpation score. We do a score 1 to 9. So 1 is really bad. 9 is the perfect keel bone. And here is the rate of lay in the first 8 weeks. So from 60% to 80%, and you see clearly the poor score, 1, 2, 3, have a higher rate of lay in the early life. So the earlier the hen is starting to lay, give a clear negative effect on the keel palpation score. Palpation score cannot be the only measurement. We have to go for other measurements for sure. This was something nice to start. But we need to have a better measurement. And then, X-ray was for sure one of the techniques that are available to make keel bone measurement. Again, this correlation between, do we measure really the keel bone, or is better to measure one of the long bones? We decided to go for a measurement on the long bones, because the long bones is easier to define, the place where to measure. Here you see this is the tibia, so one part of the tibia where this yellow window is, and the curve that is shown in the graph is showing the gray scale, so the density of this bone. And you see the two tips are the cortex, so of the long bone, and in between is the medullary bone and the hind part of the cortex. So this is the machine that was used. It's a X-ray machine designed for veterinary analysis of mainly horses. So a small machine, and you see the layout. The hen is not stunned. The hen is fixed by a strap. So the head is in a holder, and the legs are fixed by a strap. And then most of the hens are really calm and take the measurement. The other photo showing the measurement, this green stripe, for those of you who are not familiar with this measurement, is the measurement is showing the millimeter aluminum thickness. So the darker, the more thick the aluminum that is used to calibrate or give the reading of this image. Here you see the genetic parameters of the palpation, the tibia density at 72 weeks from the radiographic measurement, the body weight, and the measures post-mortem, so in the dissected bones. In this line where we did the measurement, the palpation score, as already shown before from the other line, is in a range of 0.7, so 0.2. 0.17. The tibia density shows a real nice heritability, 0.6. The correlation between palpation and tibia density is not exciting. So what is not surprising, because the palpation is in a different bone, is a different measurement or different trait, a little different trait than really the tibia density. The body weight, 0.4 heritability, and the body weight showing positive correlation. Higher body weight seems to have a better bone density, a better bone condition. I'm still in discussion with our research partners how to deal with this. They want to use the body weight as a covariate for their analysis. So most of you are from the academic world. From an academic point of view, making a correction or a covariate for a body weight sound maybe nice to you. Yeah? But for me, as a geneticist, I hate that. Yeah? Why? This was one of the lectures I still have in mind from the university, and they said, never make a trait as a covariate. Yeah? And body weight is a trait that has its own genetic component. So when you put body weight as a covariate for another trait, when you're ending up in making selection decisions, you are not sure what you're doing. Yeah? This is a similar thing like feed conversion. Yeah? Never use feed conversion as a trait. Do feed intake and egg mass output. And then you can do the weighting in the index, in which way you want to select. Yeah? That's nice. That's okay. But correcting one trait for another trait, for me, something that I don't like. Yeah? Okay, the good message is a real nice and good correlation between the tibia density and the breaking strength and the density measured in the dissected bones. Why using X-ray and not using other technologies? We saw in the presentation before the nice images or videos from the CT scanner. Yeah, this CT scanner has a high resolution. You saw it's a very nice technique. But from a practical breeder's point of view, it's expensive, yeah, and it's slow. We want to measure 100,000 of birds, yeah, for only the bone. Yeah. For the meat, people, turkeys or broilers, this is a bit a different story. You can take a lot of other information out of this. If we should do this slow and expensive measurement only for the bone, yeah, maybe not, or it's a different decision to make. The MRI or MRT, many people say, yeah, why don't you use MRI? MRI is not so expensive, going faster. MRT or MRI cannot measure a bone. It can measure wet tissue, water-based organs, but not bone traits. In the one of the next slides, I want to show you some situations how this is behaving in a real selection situation. And to know what I'm talking about is here showing our selection index, a lot of different traits. I don't want to go through all of them. You see one of the traits that we are talking about is the bone integrity, but it has to be in the selection index combined with a lot of other traits. Not even here is the laying performance, egg weight, egg quality, in different environments. So in the end, ending up in a lot of different traits that go into the index and all need to improve somehow at the same time. This slide is explaining what I want to show in the next slide. All of you know what heritability means for sure. I use this slide when I talk to my customers that have no idea what heritability means, but I believe it's explaining good what I want to show in the next slide. So any trait, here in the example is egg number. We take a selected parents, so the best 10 to 15%. And then what can we expect in the next generation, depending on the heritability? The higher the heritability, the more genetic progress or improvement we can expect. And here in this case, by 20x more performance in the selected parents and then heritability of 0.15, we can expect genetic progress of 3x, so selection differential of 3x. And this is what I want to show in the next slide, this selection differential in the breeding values. So here are the traits. I took 5 traits, egg number 100 weeks, rate of lay in sexual maturity in this period 1, the egg weight in pound case weight, feed intake, body weight, and the palpation score. So the heritability of the traits and the standard deviation of the breeding values. So the standard deviation of the breeding values is to compare the different traits, because the selection differential shown in the other columns is expressed as a percentage of the genetic standard deviation or standard deviation of the heritability. So a hypothetical selection, what can we achieve when we select only for egg number and ignore all the other traits? So then you see 2 lines, one in red and one in black. And you see here the red thing is egg weight. So if we push only egg number, egg weight will go down. And this is shown here. If we push only egg number, we can achieve 12x more, but egg size goes down by 0.7 pound. So we want the egg size not to go down, so we restrict egg size stay 0, and then we can achieve, instead of 12x more, 9x more. Feed intake goes a little up, 0.2, which is not too much, 20% of a standard deviation. The body weight goes a little up, 0.08 pound, which is 8% of a standard deviation. What does the palpation score? The palpation score goes in an undesired way, 16% of a standard deviation, which is not extreme, but it's a little negative. One thing to see here is when we push for egg number, the sexual maturity, the rate of lay in the early life goes up, which is correlated to a poorer palpation score. So the second column, what would happen if we select only for palpation score? Egg number would go down by 1 egg. The rate of lay in the first 2 periods or 8 weeks goes down minus 0.9. So 8 weeks is 56 days. Let's say roughly 0.1% lower rate of lay in 56 days is half an egg less. So half an egg of this 1 egg less comes from a later sexual maturity. The egg weight goes a little down, but not, 0.2, 12%. So this negative relation to the egg weight is a little, but not very strong. Feed intake, no change. Body weight, no change. And palpation score, for sure, because we select for the palpation score goes up 150%. The last column, what we call the balanced selecting, is making the achievement in egg number as much as we can. The rate of lay goes a little up, 0.3, not 0.7 like in the other example. Egg weight, a little up. Feed intake, a little up. Body weight, no change. And palpation score, as much as we can achieve, so 33% of a standard deviation. And this is how we balance the selection for the different traits. Summary, keel bone damage is known since long time. It exists in cage and in cage-free environment. It's a multifactorial issue. It's not only genetic. It's not, it cannot be fully solved by genetics, for sure not. Calcium supply, later sexual maturity is one thing. It can be observed in wild and low-performing poultries. Low-performing, the backyard breeds not show 70-80% keel bone fractures. They show 20-30% of keel bone fractures. So still significant, but much lower than our hybrids or high-performing breeds. The negative correlation is not to laying performance, is not to egg size. The negative correlation is to sexual maturity. So sexual maturity is a trait that is pushed a lot in the last years. Later sexual maturity can be easily achieved by management, so a later light stimulation. From a breeding point of view, in Europe we have these slow-growing broilers. Maybe in the future a slow starting layer may be an option. If this is really becoming more hot the topic, I put some question marks behind, something to think about. So my acknowledgements is to the team of Roslin Institute, Professor Ian Dunn and his team, and to my colleague Björn Andersson, who did all these measurements of the X-ray. Thank you.